Oh, wait a minute. Parents aren't these horrible monsters well, we are, but it's because it's so hard. It's because we're unprepared.
Yeah, it's easy to talk when you're not a parent, right?
Yeah. So, we're untrained and unpaid and it's the most important job in the world, but would you give somebody the most important job in the world and not give them any training and support and pay? I don't think so.
Today's Into Healing guest is Lawrence J. Cohen, a licensed psychologist and the acclaimed author of Playful Parenting and the Opposite of Worry. This is Into Healing, and I'm your host, Mira Kaddoura.
Hi, Larry.
Hi, Mira.
How are you?
Great.
It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I want to start a little bit with your background and how your background in psychology has kind of influenced your work.
I feel like studying psychology kind of made me who I am. It's so much a part of my identity. I was really young when I went in. I was straight out of college. A lot of my classmates studying psychology they'd been out in the world.
Is that something normal that you kind of go out into the world and then you go back?
I think it's more common. I think I was sort of more on the unusual side, going straight through. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know why I was doing that.
I don't think we ever do.
Right. I come from a big mental health family. My father was a psychiatrist. My mother was a social worker. My older sister was a psychologist. The youngest of my older sisters has went back later and is now a licensed mental health counselor. The other sister was an early childhood educator.
Wow. It's in your bones.
It's in my bones, it's in my blood. But still, when I started, it was just like, I don't know what else to do. I liked psychology classes when I was in college, so I'll just do that. And then it really touched me. It really reached me. Just the idea that we are all more than we seem, that there's so much going on, that the brain, the nervous system, the mind, our ancestors, our values, our fears, like all of these things make up who we are, and just really opened me up and made me see the world. And then the first thing that I was really working on is studying was trauma when I was in graduate school and studying psychology, and it was a much newer field. I mean, it wasn't brand new. I mean, people have been studying trauma for thousands of years, but not like today where it's, everywhere.
Everybody knows everybody knows the word.
Yeah, and I did my research on the long-term recovery from rape and incest, so sexual abuse, and this was really starting to come out into the open. And I felt really so honored to have people willing to share their stories with me. And at that time, it was almost all women that were coming forward with these stories. A little while later, men were starting to come forward, and I felt like I was just the perfect person to listen because I'd had that background. I knew the field, and I was a man, and that this really, again, really shaped who I am. And friends would say, "How can you listen to these terrible stories?" And I said, "I don't really feel it that way. I really feel honored to be trusted with them, and I feel that people's truth and people's pain needs to be treated very kindly and gently." It wasn't something that was natural or easy because my natural tendency was to turn away from things that are painful and hard, especially this kind of thing. And so to just learn and practice sitting with it, to not have to run from it, to not have to fix it and make everything all better right now.
Just to witness it.
To witness, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there was something very healing about that for you, too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how did you get from psychology to playful parenting?
Yeah. Well, I think my professors if any of them are still around and still listening, I think they would deny this. But I felt like the message when I was working with children during my training, I felt the message was the parents screwed these kids up. And you come in, you're the savior who comes in on the white horse. You're the wonderful therapist, and you spend some time with this child and you give them a corrective emotional experience, and you're stable and you're a little bit warm but not too warm, and somehow that's magic. And somehow then they're going to go home and everything's going to be different. And they never said that in those words, but that's kind of the message I got of what I was supposed to do. And maybe that was me. Maybe I just misunderstood the job. But that's what I felt like I was supposed to do, and it made no sense, and I couldn't do it. And I did the minimum I had to in my training, in my internship. I worked with children and families, but I wasn't good at it. And of
Why
course,
do you think you weren't good at it?
well, I think I had that attitude that parents mess things up. Kids need to be rescued, and you're not going to get anywhere with anybody with that. I was also scared. I also really hadn't done a lot of my own work. I couldn't have told you what the pain points and difficulties of my own childhood were. I really hadn't thought it through. So I missed a lot. And it was over my head. That all changed when I became a father. And actually,
The joke's on you.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Parents aren't these horrible monsters who, well, we are, but it's because it's so hard. It's because we're unprepared.
Yeah, it's easy to talk when you're not a parent, right?
Yeah. So, we're untrained and unpaid and it's the most important job in the world, but would you give somebody the most important job in the world and not give them any training and support and pay? I don't think so. So I really started over again from scratch. And I feel like we talk about the birth of the child, but there's also the birth of the parent.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, it starts even before the baby's born. And I had a very profound experience before Emma was born, that I realized I wasn't really connecting with her, in utero. And I felt like I was supposed to. I felt like I really wanted to, but there was this distance. And I realized I did a lot of introspection and talked with friends and therapy, and I realized that I had this fear of loss. That if I connect, then I'm setting myself up for loss and disaster. And so better to just avoid it.
Oof.
And of course, that doesn't work, because the loss not only happens anyway, the loss is even worse because you missed your chance to connect. So this took a while, but that was something, I think one of the biggest kind of pieces of inner work that I ever did was to face that and realize that, to work on resolving past losses, really bring them out, talk about them, feel them, go through the heartache, the re-traumatization of dealing with it, and come out the other side really excited about connecting with this human being. And then it was totally different after that. And I was so glad that I did that work before she was born, because she was born and we just hit the ground running and had such a close relationship. Now, you asked about playful parenting. The play didn't come in right away because I was an anxious and nervous parent. Like just as an anxious and worried person, child, grown up, that suddenly does not go away, being a parent. There's all these new things to worry about.
Totally.
So this was another thing that I really had to work on.
That was going to be actually my second question, that you were a very anxious parent, even though you had done that work to kind of face your face the loss that you had in your past to kind of become
Yeah.
more connected as a parent, you still weren't playful. You were still very anxious.
Right.
You know, and it didn't come easy to you being a parent. So, you know, but you started observing things in other parents that intrigued you. So tell me a little bit more about that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I would watch other parents or just friends being with their kids, being with Emma, and I thought, I want some of that. I saw what I was missing, and again, it's back to connection, that there was this type of connection that I didn't even knew that I wanted and longed for until I saw it. And so with that, there was a bit of fake it till you make it. I think that I really just pushed myself. And it's like, I'm just going to be on the floor. I'm just going to fall over. I'm just going to be silly. And that worked, you know, that worked for me. Now I'm, you know,
Goofy and
that's what I'm
silly,
known for, being goofy and silly. That's my go-to now. And sometimes too much, you know. My granddaughter says, don't be silly right now. I'm like, okay. I'm just going to listen. I'm sorry.
So funny.
Yeah.
That's so interesting to me. Just the amount of work that you've had to do to kind of get there as a person who literally trained in, you know, like you help other
Yeah.
people with this work and you had to like
Yeah.
do it for yourself. So what kind of work and self-inquiry had to happen for you to become a more playful parent? Like walk us through kind of the work that you had to do personally.
There was a sequence that happened over and over again where it was really think about and talk about where I wanted to be, talk about the pain of not being there, and then go try it, and then talk about it after, about what it was like, the joys and the pains. You know, a lot of times we think about what's hidden, what people keep private is the pain, but we also keep a lot of joy hidden. And I noticed this with parenting, that we don't always share our struggles, but we also don't share our joys. And some of it is we don't want to feel like we're bragging. We see another parent and they're really struggling, and we don't want to say, I had the most incredible time with my child today. But also, there's something kind of private and precious about it. And we're afraid, I think, that other people won't hold it tenderly when we share that. And so finding people safe enough to be able to share the joys and the pains. So beforehand, somebody safe enough to share the fears and hopes. And then afterwards to share the triumphs and failures and everything that gets stirred up, because play is this primal flow state. You know, mammals, especially many other animals, not just mammals, but all mammals are primed. It's a basic neurological pathway, just like eating and emotions and survival is play. So it's this primal state. We're in this flow state. And because of that, when we're in it as adults, it taps into whatever's back there. And what's back there is all kinds of stuff. Right? And not all good stuff, right? So, but there is good stuff. And unfortunately, what happens is, and I think this is pretty universal, we want to lock up the bad stuff. So I can't play, I can't do music, I can't do art, I can't be creative, I can't engage with other people, because that opens up the door to everything back there, everything we've pushed away. And I don't want to get near the painful part. That's the trauma, the hurts and mistreatments and the times we were terrified for our lives and all that.
So when you open the joy, you're also opening the door to everything else.
Exactly. And the flip side, when you close the door to that, you close the door to the joy and the flow. Now, not entirely. I'm exaggerating. But there's an element of that. And so finding someone who you can feel safe enough to share that, and then they honor it and they witness it and they don't try to fix you. So for me, having a friend that I could call and say, I'm going to throw her out the window. And I knew my friend was not going to call social services because they knew this was a passing feeling and that I was a good dad and that I wasn't going to hurt her, but that I needed to be able to say it so that it could come out and be done. And seeing, you just look under the rocks and you start to see the connections. So something's hard, and instead of just, it's so hard, it's, oh, I wonder why that's hard. And you start to see the connections back to earlier. And, it's not just to my childhood, but, I look under the rock and there's things from my father's childhood and from his father's childhood. None of us are very far removed from the traumas and the triumphs of
our ancestors, of course.
Ancestors, yeah.
One thing that I thought of while you were talking is how a lot of us as kids had to suppress emotion, and how that probably is linked to playfulness and right? Maybe you can talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. Play is like the playground for emotions, and it ought to be for adults as well, but most often it's not. And often when we are like, okay, I'm going to dive into emotions, we do that in talk and not in play. But yes, absolutely. Part of the training we get as children is put that emotion away. Because what's the message we get from outside when we have a strong emotion?
Because it's not safe. It's not.
Yeah. It's like you're
too much.
You're too much. I'll give you something to cry about. Go to your room until you can have a smile on your face, or even, what are you laughing at? I remember my daughter. She was with her best friend, and her friend lives in a big apartment building, and they were 5 years old or 6 years old, and they were giggling walking down the hall. And somebody opens their door in the apartment building and says, "You girls better stop laughing. I'm going to report you to the management for laughing." And fortunately, the managers just said, "You got to chill out." They were not doing anything wrong.
Well, we hear it all the time. You hear it all the time. Don't cry. You're a big girl, or don't cry. Stop crying. We hear it. I mean, literally just passing on the street.
Yeah, and don't be angry. And so boys get a double dose of don't cry, and girls get a double dose of don't be angry. Yeah. And then it's part of our humanity deprived from us, because this is part of being human, is having access to every emotion. And so the emotion doesn't go away. I had this one teacher who said, if you shove your emotions down into the basement, they don't go away. There's a gym in the basement, and they lift weights, and they get stronger and stronger and stronger. So they come raging out of us, but we don't have any
tools.
Yeah, we don't know what to do. They just come flowing out. We're screaming and yelling, or we're sobbing, or we're we're terrified of something that is not actually dangerous. So emotions don't go away. And play is a way to get back to them. So one thing that I often suggest to parents is, if you feel uncomfortable with any particular emotion, bring it into play with your child. And so with a young child who's into pretend, you can have a character that's really fearful. So there was one kid I was playing with, and she had a lot of fears. And so there was this little toy duck, and this was Hank the security duck. And so Hank the security duck was like, "Oh, be careful, be careful, be careful. Oh no, that tea's really hot. You better be careful." And the child would laugh. And when you're doing this play, you have to make sure you're not making fun of the child. That's not the goal, to show them, look what you look like. That's not the point. The point is, they see it outside of themselves, they get a little distance, they can laugh about it. Now, at the same time, here I am, I'm an anxious person, and so I get to be expressing all this fear that normally I just
Stuff.
try to not, I don't want anybody to see that I go around the world thinking that all the time. So, but Hank, the security duck, can say it all. And so the child's laughing because I'm exaggerating this in a funny way. And my nervous system is kind of getting to complete the circuit because emotion arises in us, and then our nervous system's like, go, do something, hit somebody, run, cry, find somebody to hug. It's our nervous system is telling us do something, but a lot of times we don't do that. We're inhibited. But we don't have to really do it. We can do it in play. And so that kind of play is such a benefit for the parent and the child.
I love
And you don't have to be a parent. You can do it. Anybody can do this.
I love that. Now I can imagine how you are with your grandkids. So you call it playful parenting,
Yeah.
but it's more than just play.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what playful parenting means to you?
Yeah. So playful parenting, it's now part of me. It's like, that's part of my identity. But the term came from the publisher of the book. My original title was Playing by Heart. And for a long time, it was hard for me to let go of that. And they said, we can't have a poetic title. I was like, well, at least they called it poetic, so that's that. but so they did Playful Parenting. And actually, I think it's a great name. But it's a little misleading because it's not play all the time. That would not be possible. It wouldn't be desirable, and it wouldn't be possible. It would be exhausting, but also, really, playful parenting is about tuning in. And so tuning in will mean that you're not always playing because the child's not always in a playful spot, and you're not always in a playful spot. So my wife and I moved in with our 2-year-old granddaughter and her dad when she was about 2 years old. We all moved in together, and it was really great. And I thought, okay, this is great. We're gonna play. And I'd get up in the morning. I'd be like, and I'd see her, and it's like, let's play. And she'd say, eh. And I felt rejected. And it's like I moved across the country. It's like, I didn't say that, but I was thinking it. And it took me a while to realize that I was not tuned in with her. That it's not that she doesn't understand play. She's a kid. She understands play way better than I do. But I wasn't pausing and tuning into her. And turns out, I didn't know this yet, first thing in the morning, she likes to be quiet. So we have this little half-size couch, and she started calling it the cuddle couch. So first thing in the morning was sit together on the cuddle couch. And then the dogs are there, and we're there, and it's really cozy. And then when she's ready to do more lively play, then she lets me know. It's all about tuning in. And so if a child is crying and they're sad, it's not, oh, let's play a game, or, oh, I got you a new toy. Because that's all about, don't
your
be sad.
distraction.
I can't
Exactly.
stand you being sad, so you better stop. Instead, it's, oh, what happened? Tell me all about it. And share those tears, and I want to hear that. It's so hard for us as adults. And I absolutely believe if we haven't cried our tears, or at least some of them, we all have plenty inside we haven't cried. They got stuffed. But if we haven't cried some of those tears, then we're not going to tolerate a child crying.
Yeah.
It's going to be too painful and too
Because it triggers all our tears.
Yeah. And we want, as a parent, all these things come together. Okay? I can't stand the crying because I don't want to deal with that inside me. You're my precious child, and I don't want you to suffer, and so I want you to feel better right away.
I want to fix it.
Yeah, and I'm a logical problem solver, and so I want to fix it. So my niece told me this story. She has 6-year-old twins and 2 girls, and one of them was crying inconsolably. And my niece, the mom, says, tell me in words what's going on so I can fix it. And that wasn't working. And she kept saying it. It's like, tell me in words, tell me in words. And the other twin, the other 6-year-old, said, she is telling She is using words, Mama. Tears are words.
Oof.
You just don't understand them. And I just thought, that's the most profound thing I've ever heard anyone say.
Oh my God.
So this is a message that I think that we all need to learn, is that children communicate in their own way, and they communicate with tears and tantrums and screams and behavior and refusing to do things and slamming the door and breaking things and screaming with joy, and they communicate with play, and the toys are saying things and doing things, and we miss most of that communication because we dismiss play. That's just play. That's not important. Now, I know that doesn't mean that we should be analyzing everything that a child does in play. That's just too much. We're not the child's therapist, but as a parent, aunt, uncle, friend, anyone who's spending time with a child, we just see that the play is valuable. And we see that the engagement we're doing is valuable. And we know they're telling us something important, and we might not be able to translate it exactly.
Yeah, I want to go back to how playful parenting isn't just playing.
Yeah.
And how it's sitting with the child.
I get excited about this. So I really think it's all about connection. And the two main ways of connecting with children reflect the two languages of childhood. So one is the language of play, and we connect with them through play. So children don't come home from school and say, I had a bad day, would you like to sit and talk about it? Very few children will say that. They'll say, will you play with me? And then we say, I'm too busy. And what we've said is, we don't realize this, but what we've said is, I don't want to hear about your hard day. I don't care. Now, we would never say those words probably.
That's what we say in our actions.
That's what we say in our actions when we say, I'm too busy to play. So we can connect through play, or we connect through emotional understanding. That's the other. And emotion is the other language of childhood. So babies are born with the emotional part of their brain full and ready to go. And the verbal, logical side, big empty space, ready to be filled. And it's going to take years and years to fill that. But the emotions are all there. And of course, parents get confused because the child's crying, and it takes them a while. It's like, oh, that's the hunger cry, that's the lonely cry, that's the scared cry. But all those emotions are there from the very start. So as adults, we try to force children to speak our language. Use your words, right? So this is one of the most common things people say to adults say to children like preschool age. They hit, they grab. Of course, they hit and grab. And we say, use your words. Well, if they could have, they would have.
They have no idea what you're saying.
That part of the brain is not accessible to them. Yeah. They've only just recently gotten words. And when things are intense, words go out the window. Yeah. It's just actions.
Yeah, and I don't even think they understand what use your words means.
Right. Or sometimes I've seen kids who are like, oh, and then they start swearing up a blue streak, and they're like, not those words. Like, wait a minute. You told me to use my words. Because we also tell children, don't say that, don't say that. All kinds of words we don't allow them to say, but then we tell them to use your words. So, but all of that can be done in emotional connection. I see you. This is what I see. I accept you. I welcome you. My shorthand for this is I open my eyes to you. I let you know that my eyes are open. Because it's not enough that I know what you're feeling. I have to let you know. Oh my gosh, that was so sad. Oh, that was scary. Oh, you're mad. And I open my heart to you. I open my eyes to you, I open my heart to you, which means I accept that that's what you're feeling. I don't tell you, that's nothing. What are you upset about that about?
Dismissing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we, as parents, as adults, how do we get better at that? Because that takes a certain amount of self-awareness. It takes a certain amount of doing our own work.
Yeah.
How do we sit with our emotions that we don't want to sit with?
Right.
So we can create
right.
space for the children.
Yeah. I don't know any shortcut to doing our own work. You know, when I teach playful parenting to parents and parent educators, looking within is a central part. And a lot of times people want to skip that. It's like, just give me the tips and techniques. But all the best tips and techniques in the world aren't going to really reach anywhere.
When you're triggered.
Yeah, when you're constantly triggered. Exactly. So, so I'm glad you brought up triggers. So this is one way to really do that awareness and to not have it just be this vague thing like, oh, do your work. Like, what does that mean? So I have this chart. It's called Track Your Triggers. And the first column is kind of the time and situation that something happens. Okay? And you do this because you're looking for patterns, you know? But the first time you just write it down. It's like, how do you know you get triggered? You got a big emotional reaction, bigger than you would expect from the situation. Okay? So your child says, for the first time, your child says, you're stupid. And you're terrified that they're going to end up in prison because they're a bad kid, or you're enraged that they spoke to you that way. So,
Or you weren't ever allowed to say that to
yeah,
your parents.
Right. So that all goes in there. So you track your triggers, so you write it down, and it's like, okay, 10 o'clock Monday morning, this happened. It's like, okay, maybe it happened after I said, no cookies for breakfast. Okay, then the focus is what happened in me. Usually, we think about what the other bad person did, all the bad things that they did. But tracking your triggers is all about looking within. So, okay, I had a surge of rage. I had a surge of heat inside my body. I had this tension in my shoulders. I had this urge to scream. My hands started to come into a fist. And I write all that down. And then, what's my guess of what this might be about, what this might be linked to? And it might be a big question mark. And, some people that do track their triggers for a while, and there's a lot of question marks. And then the light comes on, and it's like, oh, okay, so maybe like you said, I was never allowed to say no to my parents about anything. Okay? I was never allowed to speak my mind. Parents do stupid things, but we can't say that they're stupid. Okay, that's just not allowed. And then what would I have liked to have done? Maybe include like, what did I do? Okay, I yelled. What would I have liked to have done? And to kind of prompt that, I always ask, what could be a playful response? What could be an empathic response? So in that case, maybe I think, well, I got flooded, I got triggered, but if I can slow it down and do it over, a playful response would be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe what you just said to me. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to pour this water on my head. And then they're laughing and giggling, and that disconnection that's happened. The disconnection happened before they said you were stupid, but I wasn't aware of it until you said I'm stupid. Now I'm aware of it. And so we reconnect, we're silly, we laugh, we rejoin, we get back on track together with just a little humor and lightness. Or the empathic response, that's some strong language you're using. Boy, I wonder what's going on inside, because I know that's not the kind of thing you would usually say. And so I know you must be having some big feelings inside, because that's a strong word. And you see how different that is from don't talk to me that way. That just shuts everything down. So if you track these triggers over time, then you start to see the patterns. And you start to see, oh, Monday mornings, I always get triggered on Monday mornings, or Sunday night, or bedtime, or dinner time. And then you start to see, what's this all connected to? And then that's kind of where the heart of the work is. And And that doesn't mean, call up your mother and yell at her, It just, maybe, that might feel good for a minute, but it has some drawbacks. But what it means is to look inside. And there's a practice in parenting that I think is incredibly valuable, which is every time you give something good to your child, give a little bit extra to yourself. So that when I gave the example of the playful response and the empathic response, like, okay, little Larry, who maybe got yelled at or maybe was too afraid to speak up, okay, I'm saying to my child, oh, tell me all about it. What's really going on? And I'm including a little bit of that coming back towards me. Little Larry inside.
So much there. Yeah, I see it a lot with parents not feeling like their kids are grateful for everything that they do for them.
Yeah.
And that is a big trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter cured me of that.
So tell me, how did she cure you of that?
I didn't ask to be born. That was your decision. It's like, you know what? You didn't ask to be born.
That's amazing.
And and we really want children to be so transactional. And how do we build gratitude in a child? It's by sharing it with them, thanking them, appreciating them. How do we build respectfulness in a child? It's by being respectful to them. These are not things that can be taught with lectures or with punishments or with scolding. They just can't, and we keep trying. Yeah, so what does that mean? So if you're triggered by a child's ingratitude, then, okay, what's the exact situation that triggers you, and what happens inside? This is the part we usually skip.
Yep.
We go right to
because it's uncomfortable.
What you did, and we call our friend and we'd say to the spouse, like, can you believe that? And we're talking about what they did. And wait, let's turn the lens in, and what exactly happened? Emotions have a physical component, and memories have a physical component. And we've been trained out of looking at those. Most of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think some people, naturally have more access to that, and they can feel it. Some people, I think some kind of training in acting. It's all about getting in touch with the physicality of emotion. But for most of us, the training is the opposite.
Yeah. It's like we're just, there's a door.
That's it.
Yeah. So why is play so important, especially for young children?
Oh boy, there's a part of me that just wants to say, well, it just is. It just is. So how to explain why it's so important? It's just deeply wired that's how learning happens. And I like to look at the animal kingdom to see how that is, to see how deeply wired it is, because it's something that we share. And so, wolf cubs, they play fight, they play wrestle. It's a very physical kind of play. They are stalking, they are hunting, and they are learning through play all of the things that they will need in their life. And they're not just learning to hunt, but they're also learning to manage that aggression. What do we want in our young children? We want them to modulate their aggression. And so when a little wolf cub nips the mom too hard, they have this sharp little teeth, and they're playing with mom and they nip too hard, the mama wolf goes, whoa! And the wolf cubs jump back, and then they go back to playing. So they're startled, they get the message, okay? And they go back to playing. This is so crucial. How many times do adults say, don't do that anymore. Quit playing. You're playing too rough, stop playing. Nothing's learned there. instead of, oh, wow, this is getting kind of rough. Let's go over the rules again. There's Piaget, like 100 years ago, Jean Piaget, Swiss psychologist. He studied children's development. And there's a test, it's called, or a concept, it's called conservation of volume. So if we had a tall, skinny cup here, along with this short, wide cup, and the tall, skinny cup was filled up to here, and I asked you, which one has more water?
You think that one instead of that one.
Yeah, so a young child would think the taller one, even though they might have the same amount of water. And you could pour it, you could pour it back and forth, and it'd be exactly the same, and they'd still say, oh yeah, this taller one has more water in it. Until a certain age, when they get it. And then they laugh, and they think, oh, that's really funny, but they have the same amount of water. So the thing is, the way every child learns this is by pouring water.
By playing.
Yeah. And my daughter she took a course in child development when she was in high school. And as part of the course, they had to observe in the early childhood classroom that was on the campus of the high school. And she came home and she said, you won't believe what the teacher was doing. And said the teacher was trying to teach through a lecture this conservation of volume, because they tested the children and this child didn't have it. And it was the age where they were supposed to have it. So it's like, look, here's how you do it, and this is why. And it was like, it cannot be taught that way. It can only be taught by pouring. And it's like, so I could say, okay, now pour these glasses until you get it. But where's the joy that's going to spark the learning. And so people are so obsessed with their children being smart and educated and high grades and all that stuff. Not everybody, but so many parents are. And missing what's really needed is the love of learning. So we take children who have a natural love of learning and we wipe that out, and then we try to replace it with force. And then we wonder why they can't sit still, why they'd rather play video games, why they're not interested in learning. This mom told me the story of, she was taking her little boy to the bathroom. They were in the playground and they were going to the bathroom, and he saw a little cricket. And he squatted down and he just wanted to stay and watch this cricket. And the mother was saying, what's wrong with him? Like, he wouldn't do what he was supposed to be doing. And I said, do you want this child to be able to focus when he gets to school? It's like, oh yeah. It's like, well, he's practicing focus. And guess what? You practice focus best if you get to choose what you're focusing on. And that was okay, so much. It's not like, okay, I'm going to give you this math worksheet and you're going to focus on that. And you're going to really practice focusing because you have to focus on this. And I'm going to, you'll be in trouble if you don't. That's not how we learn how to focus. And play is what children naturally focus on.
Beautiful. I love that. Such a good reminder.
Yeah.
So how do we encourage children's sense of agency and autonomy? And why is that important?
I was in China a few years ago, and before the pandemic, and I was at the Great Wall, and it was a warm day, and I saw this little boy wearing a very heavy jacket. And I pointed this out to my friend, who was taking me around. And she said, look who he's with. And he was with his grandmother. And she said, there's a saying in China, there's only one kind of cold, grandmother cold. And of course, this is not just in China. I mean, I grew up with this too. I grew up with my mother saying, I think every
child's like, take a jacket.
Yeah,
Everybody's
right. My mother would say, put on a jacket, I'm cold. I'm like, well, I'm not cold. So our bodies are the best two great places to build agency and to help children have a sense of agency. One is our bodies, children's bodies. So let them be in charge of if they're cold or hot. They're mammals. They know about cold and hot. If they're cold,
they're gonna ask for a jacket.
Right. And being hungry or full. How many children are told, you can't be hungry, you just ate. Or that's enough. Or you can't be full. You have to keep eating. Well, it is true that we know as adults that if they don't eat enough at dinner time, they're going to be hungry at bedtime, and that's going to be a disaster for bedtime. But that doesn't mean that we're in charge of knowing whether they're hungry and full. We have to find some other way to resolve that. And I know for me, it's very hard for me to know when I'm full. I'll just keep eating. It's there. And because somehow that sense got interrupted, that inner sense. And my wife is the opposite. She doesn't know when she's hungry. So she got told, eat, eat, eat. And so didn't know when she was hungry. I don't know when I'm full. So together we're just a mess. So our bodies is an important part of agency, and we see how this is connected to consent. So we magically expect children to grow up, and they're teenagers and young adults and grown-ups, and they suddenly understand and are able to have boundaries and to say no and to listen when somebody else says no and to ask, can I hold your hand, instead of grab it. But we've undermined their sense of agency in their bodies. Now, sometimes we have to, Sometimes there's medical procedures where they don't want to do it, and we just have to override their resistance and do it. And sometimes, it's freezing and they're going to get frostbite, literally get frostbite, not just be a little cold, and we have to make sure that they wear a coat. This does happen, but we can do it in a gentler way, and we can do it with recognition that, I know this is not how you want it to go, and I know that your body is saying this, but we need to do that. Then play is the other great area for agency. And I can understand that we need to have children on our schedule for a lot of life. And we're not going to put children in charge of the family finances, for example. But they can be in charge of play. And I just see too much where adults take over play. And they're saying, you've got to play this, and you've got to play with this person, and you've got to play for this long. And, you go to a children's museum or a playground, and it's, now come do this, now come do this, now come do that. Or we just got here, we have to stay here and do everything there is to do here. Instead of trusting children to have their own self-determination in play. We have an important job of safety, of having good, interesting materials, but not in saying exactly how to play. And when we step back and let children play, they are so much more creative in their play. If we provide enthusiasm, if we provide good materials and safety and enthusiasm, then they will be incredibly creative in their play.
One thing that comes up for me is I have three small daughters, and one of my daughters, since she was really young, has loved climbing trees. Like she just absolutely loves climbing trees, and these trees have become like bigger and bigger and bigger as she's gotten older. She's 7 now, and recently we were at a birthday, and she found like the biggest tree ever, and literally went up so high. But since she was young, I've kind of asked her, "How does your body feel up there?"
Great.
How does your body feel up there? Does your body feel safe? Since she was like 2, and so she just like takes inventory and she sees if she feels scared or she feels okay, and then she just stays if she feels okay, or she comes down. And everybody's freaking out, and I'm like, she's got it. She knows, she knows, and she's holding on to all the knobs of the tree, and she knows. She knows like how she feels up there. And it's like, how do we, just because of our fears, how do we not take that away from them?
Exactly. So self-determination of risk is what's really makes children safe. It's the self-determination. So the child who's like just putting one foot up on the lowest branch is also doing risky play, but we don't think that. We think of the child up there because it makes our heart go, ah! So that's risky. But the child who's just thinking about it and even looking, and it's like, I wonder if I could get on the lowest first branch. They're doing risky play, and they're self-determining that, no, I'm fine here with one foot on the lowest branch. And your daughter's like, I'm fine here up on the top of the branch. I learned this kind of from the opposite way, which is I was at the playground with my daughter, and she was about 3 years old, 3 or 4, and she was climbing up high, and I was saying, be careful, be careful, be careful. And my friend was with me and said, Larry, she's going to recover a lot better from a broken arm than from being timid and fearful her whole life. And I really took this to heart. And it helped that my friend didn't say, like you, Larry, you don't want her to be like you. So I was able to take it in bed. I mean, I knew it. I knew what that my friend was saying, but and so I had to, what kind of sounds like it came more naturally to you to say, tune into your body. That was a long haul for me. That was a real push inside, and really working on remembering that my goal is for her to be confident, not for her to be absolutely perfectly safe, because there's no such thing. Because to put children in that bubble and make them perfectly safe, then there's other harm that's caused from that, and they're not perfectly safe anymore.
Yeah, and they'll never really be perfectly safe. Like the world is inherently not safe, right? Like we can be crossing a street and something can happen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And some children are really reckless, and we need to connect with them.
And give them boundaries and rules a little bit to kind of help keep them safe.
Right, and do it together. I think that often that recklessness comes from not enough connection. And so do more connection.
Yeah, when I think of my daughter, I think of how as kids we're almost like we force this like safety on children that comes from our insecurity, right? But then as adults, we applaud risk taking, and we want adults to be more risk takers and all that stuff. And it's like it's been completely, not encouraged at a young age.
Right. Or I think sometimes we actually do the opposite, which is all the other kids are climbing. Why don't you? What are you doing? How come you're just sitting here? Go, go, go.
We push them outside of what they're comfortable doing.
Yeah. And either side, it's trust. Trust is the answer. Trust in their self-determination.
I love that. I love self-determination. So my next question is actually about trust.
Yeah.
So you say the opposite of worry is trust when it comes to parenting. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, my book on childhood anxiety is called The Opposite of Worry. And I really had that title in my head before I thought about what is the opposite of worry. And I realized that for parents, the opposite of worry is not calm serenity. Monks up on the mountaintop have calm serenity, maybe, but they're meditating 8 hours a day and they don't have children. So what do we have? We don't have that calm serenity. What we have is the opposite of worry is trust. So trust in the power of attachment and connection. So trust that what we lay down in those early years is going to carry them forward. Trust in the process of development. So every year I get calls from anxious parents, so around April, May. I'll get these calls. My child just turned 5 and they're not ready for kindergarten, and they're not going to be ready for kindergarten in September. It's like a lot of development happens between April and September in a young child. That's, a big chunk of their life. And trust in the power of development. Development happens. Now sometimes we try to force development. Okay? I have other parents who call and say, my 4-year-old doesn't have a passion in life. It's like, okay.
Oh, boy.
That's okay.
Oh,
They're like, but it's not okay. And so I signed her up for this and this and this and this and this. It's like, okay, no, just let development unfold. My child doesn't have a best friend. It's like, Some children don't have a best friend. It's okay. It's not a race. Magda Gerber, who's a big name in early childhood education, especially babies, and she just says, childhood's not a race. Development's not a race. Slow down, watch children, let them take the lead.
Why do we think it's a race? I don't understand that. Why?
I don't know. I think our whole economy is based on this pyramid model. Competition, and there's only a little room at the top. And if you're not at the top, you're at the bottom. And, we tell children to share, but grown-ups aren't very good at sharing, There's enough resources in the world for everybody to have enough. And instead,
there's hoarding,
we take
and
too much, and other people don't have enough, and there's enough to go around if we share.
Yeah.
But that's just for 4-year-olds. It's not for us.
I always say to my kids, there's enough if we share. I always use that, and I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, give us examples of playful parenting, but you already have given us plenty. How does playful parenting help us heal our inner child?
I think that anytime we're in that flow state of play, that it's a healing time. Now, it might point us to some painful places that need healing. So it might not feel like healing in the moment. It might not be like, sitting in the hot tub, It might feel like, there's something there. There's a sore spot. So it can either be directly healing, or it can point us to places where we want to work on and want to heal. And I think anything that taps us in to flow, into that timelessness, unself-consciousness. Another thing about playing, for a parent playing with your kids, I call it lose your dignity to find your child. And so to really get in there and play, if we're outside of our house, we have to let go of what people think about us. And, for some of us, that's very hard. But anytime we can let go of what people think of us, then that's automatically healing. Because it lets us be our more authentic selves. We got adult responsibilities, or maybe as a teenager we were, wanted to be cool, and all these reasons take us away from play. So if we're silly and goofy, we're reclaiming a part of our humanity. And, some people are only silly and goofy, and they need to retain the more, kind of deeper, more serious parts of their humanity. I think it's all about filling in the circle. Carl Jung talks about how in the first half of life we kind of go out in certain areas and we really develop and overdevelop certain areas, and the second half of life we kind of fill the circle. And we fill in these places that we didn't overdo. And I found that true in my life, and around age 40, I started drawing. And I always thought, I'm not creative, I can't draw. Like a lot of people in school, art class was for people who were already good at it. And music was for people who were already good at it. And everyone else, it's like, well, you're not an artist, so forget it. The last 25 years, I've been like,
so good.
Hey, And people say, that looks like a 4-year-old did that. And I think, thank you.
So good. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. So for people parents or even grandparents who maybe never got a chance to play when they were young, how can they get better at leaning into this?
So keep it simple. So there's 2 ways to keep it simple. One is with a timer. So timer is your friend. I use this a lot. When my daughter was young, it's 10 minutes. I can do anything for 10 minutes. I've done worse things than play Ariel the Little Mermaid for 10 minutes, I went to graduate school. I sat through boring, long seminars. And so I can do this, even though it's boring, even though I don't really like it. And I can also do it with enthusiasm. Maybe 8 minutes I can do it. Let's set the timer for 8 minutes. And the other is you're with a play expert. You, in most of your life, you need to be the expert. You're the grown-up and all that. But a lot of parents are exhausted because they're always trying to entertain their child. Well, joining children in play, you don't have to be the leader. You just show up. You get off the couch and onto the floor and smile, and the child will take the lead. My granddaughter's 8 now, and she's like, "Oh, let's play pet shop," and I just have to do what she, says. It's like, "You're the guy who runs the pet shop." It's like, "Okay, I'm the guy," and she goes, "Ring, ring, ring." I was like, it's not anything too fancy. I pretend to answer the phone, like, "Hi, this is the pet shop." We get lost. I think a lot of parents who don't see themselves as playful think, I've got to come up with a game. I've got to know what to play. And there are places to look for, for games, So, my book that I wrote with my friend, Unplug and Play, it's about roughhousing, and it's got 50 great games, just to kind of spark the imagination and a starting point for roughhousing, if roughhousing is unfamiliar, or if you love it and you're like, I want something new that I hadn't thought of before. But for the most part, it's just an attitude, a willingness to get on the floor. And when they're older, it's not get on the floor, it's just sit next to them when they're watching the TV show that you hate. Or, hey, can you teach me that video game? I know I'll be terrible, and you're so good at it. Can you just teach me the basics? And I promise for the next half hour, I will not say anything bad about video games. Because our goal is not to be good at video games. We're not doing it because we love video games. It's because we want to connect with our child. When my daughter was a teenager, she was watching Gossip Girl, and I was like, ugh! And I just wanted to give her lectures on sexism and feminism, and so it's like, oh, I'll watch it with you. And it's like, this is a long time ago. This was during commercials. There were commercials, so during the commercials, I would make comments. She said, "You can sit with me, but you can't make fun of my show." I was like, okay, I get it. My job is to connect, not to correct. And, and she ended up going to college and majoring in gender and women's studies, And I'm sure it was because of my lectures. But no, it was not. It was because I trusted her that if we were connected, then she could, watch these shows and not think, oh, that's who I want to be, that's who I want to live. She could just see it as entertainment.
Yeah. How powerful to just be there to connect and to feel like there's somebody there that wants to be with you instead of somebody there that's there to judge you or make you do something.
Right. And how is this teaching her about sexism if I come in as, the man and tell her that the thing she loves is stupid,
Yeah. What are your thoughts on kind of physical play and physically moving the body versus, playing in terms of watching something that is entertaining?
My gut feeling is we've lost a lot, and that it's not a replacement, that we have to have the physical play. We have to have active pretending, that passively watching is not the same, that we're missing something. But I want to be humble also and say that we don't know. It's also new. We really don't know the impact. There's people saying it's horrible, horrible, terrible, and people saying, yeah, it's fine, and, I don't know. But my gut is that screens are too passive. If you're watching something with your child, it's great to pause it now and then and act it out. And who do you want to be? And then you're not saying, turn that off and go play outside, which, my mother used to say to me. Didn't work too well. But because you're using the bridge of the content that they like, but now we're going to do something interactive, something physical. Having them teach you the game makes it interactive if it's a video game. Avoiding it in the first place is so important. And I don't mean like never have it around, but a lot of parents will ask, how do I stop having the child need to have the screen during meals or need to have it during getting ready? It's like, well, who brought that in? Right? We bring it in because we think it's going to make it helpful. Okay, we bring it in as a distraction. We bring it in because we don't want to deal with the, just the messiness of getting it done. It's easier. But then it's so easy, it just gets so hooked. Avoid parenting hacks that are too good to be true. So it's a hard one. I don't want to claim to have the answers really on digital play because we don't know. But I do think that roughhousing, really fun, engaged, playful roughhousing, is you need something energetic enough and exciting enough to be better than the screens.
Yeah. So how do we reparent ourselves in the process of parenting?
It's it's complex and it's simple. And the simple thing, it's simple to say it and complex to do it. I guess I should say it that way. So you have your child in your lap and you imagine, little Mira on your lap with you. There's your daughter and there's little Mira, and you're both getting the hug. You're both getting the warmth. And there's slowing down and just noticing inside, there's this part of me that's really scared, or this part of me that's really bored, there's part of me that's really frustrated, and I just slow down and say, I'm here with you. And this is how we want to be with our children. I'm here with you. And so this is how we can be with ourselves. We have a thought, we have an emotion, and our immediate thing is get rid of it. Or stop it by you have to stop. You have to stop asking me these hard questions so I don't feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's like you have to stop instead of, okay, not sure how to answer all these questions. It's okay. I'm here with you. So who's the I and who's the you, right? So the I is sort of my full self, and the you is, little Larry who was scared. And, I was supposed to be the smart kid in school, and so if I didn't know the answer, I felt like, oh no, they're going to realize that I'm not really. And parenting stirs all that up, brings it up for the chance to heal. And I think that's how things work, that any new relationship brings things up in the hope of healing, and so it can go two ways. If I bring it up and think, oh, here's a new relationship, and you're warm and caring, and you accept me, then there's healing. If I bring it up because, oh, here's a new relationship, and then you say, oh, that was stupid, then close it back up, slam the door harder, put extra locks on it, put it away. And when I see new relationships, it can be a friendship, it can be romance, it can be a therapist, it can be a baby. And I'm sure there's others too, but those are, kind of the ones that I think about. It's really powerful new relationships that open us up for the possibility of healing. With babies, the babies don't say you're stupid, but when we have a baby and we can't help them, they're crying and we don't know why and they won't stop, then it can add to all that turmoil inside. But we have the baby and they finally settle down and they're on our shoulder and they're come and they fall asleep and they mold to us, and then everything that we brought up then gets healed too.
Mm.
I also like to think of simple gestures. So we're so much, in our heads, in our verbal part of our brain, and we can go in circles. And I know this is true for me. It sounds like
For all of us.
Yeah, you think your way in circles, but a simple gesture, like for me, it's pat the baby. That's my favorite. So I pretend there's a baby here, and it's pat, 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 like gentle burp the baby, pat the baby. And every time I do that, my heart rate slows. And I'll do it on an airplane if there's a crying baby and I know the parents are really agitated because they know that everybody is judging them and hating them, and other adults I paid $700 for this plane ticket and there's a screaming baby, and I'm starting, and I don't mind crying babies because that's kind of what I do, but I'm feeling all the agitation and I just and it calms me, and sometimes I feel like it spreads around. So instead of, having a whole therapy session in your head, just a simple gesture. I had a friend, I was really angry about something years ago, really, really angry. And I was saying to my friend, well, I have a right to be angry. It's just, I was just saying all the things this person did. I have a right to be angry. And my friend just went like that. And didn't say anything. And I just thought, should I just pay you? This was incredible. And I just do that now. And he had this whole, he told me later, this was something he learned in studying Buddhism about, you have a burning ember in your hand, and anger is holding it and squeezing it, and it is burning and burning and burning you instead of letting it go. But for me, it was just the gesture.
Wow.
And these are things that take a second. The hard part is remembering to do them.
Yeah, of course, of course. You said, new relationships open us up to healing. Can you elaborate on that a little further?
Yeah, I think that we have this great hope when there's an important new person in our life. Because all the great things and all the painful things that happen in a human life happen in relationship. And so that makes sense that the healing or the potential for healing comes in a relationship. And so it's usually unconscious. So it's not like, oh, you reminded me of my mom, and so I'm going to show you some stuff that my mom couldn't handle and see if you can handle it. I don't think anybody has the thought. That would be kind of weird. But it's kind of what we do. If I share with you who I really am, and you love me, or you care about me, or you don't reject me, then there's just such a huge amount of healing in that. And one incredible thing about parenting is our children love us to death. Even sometimes we don't deserve it exactly. And they still love us, love us, love us. And so we get to be ourselves. And our children also see us in every state, right? We can show up for work and most of the time be
Put
on.
Yeah.
But we can't do that 24/7 with our children. And so they see us and they love us. And this is incredible. It's important that our children feel safe with us so that we can then kind of keep that cycle going. And of course, for we're the first new relationship for our children. And so we get to set the tone of what relationships are like. Yeah. But you go into therapy, and I think everybody goes into therapy goes with some hope. And that a big part of when there is healing through therapy, a big part of it is that here was this person who was able to witness and accept and appreciate the parts of me that I don't like about myself.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I was thinking about anxiety and how so many parents, especially I feel in the last 5 years, there's just been so much anxiety.
Yeah.
Is there any tools or practices or anything to try to help parents be less anxious?
Absolutely. Yeah. I wrote Opposite of Worry for parents of anxious children, but so many parents have said, I read it for me, and I got a lot out of it for me. And just naming it and just knowing it and knowing that it's a physical thing that happens inside, that's one thing. And then the other one is I believe in meditation and calming, and I don't do that much of it. It's not who I am, but I believe in it. But I think that it's not enough for a lot of people, especially when it comes to anxiety. I think that we have to get out and not just calm it down. That calming it down is great, but it often is not enough. And so shaking on purpose is what I call it. It's like, wow. And yeah, it's embarrassing to do that, but you do it privately. And getting it out. Running in place, you do it sitting down, and then it's like you feel your feet on the floor, and your nervous system's like, oh yeah, this is just what I've been telling you to do all these years. Run. And you can pretend there's a tiger chasing you, because the nervous system is perfect for tigers chasing us. Very bad for, I'm nervous sitting here having an interview. Like fight or flight is not helpful. But if it was a tiger, it would be helpful. So it's like, get me out of here. Or, shadow boxing, it's like the nervous system's like, yes, finally, you're doing it.
You're releasing it.
And so getting it out, not just think about settling it down and calming it.
What does a well-adjusted child and parent look like?
Boy. Well, it's not perfect joy all the time. The research on attachment and attunement is that parents and babies who are really well attuned, like the top cream of the crop, they're attuned about 30% of the time.
Wow.
So, and
That makes me feel...
Yeah. That's attainable, right?
I like that bar.
Yeah. I think to be able to play, to be able to be direct, I think for a parent to be able to say, I don't know. I think with a well-adjusted child and parent, I think I'm okay, you're okay, we're okay. So the child feels, I'm okay. Okay? I'm not too much for my parents. I'm not enough for them. I'm okay. I'm not perfect. They get angry with me sometimes. They get disappointed sometimes. They get frustrated. That's fine. I get angry and frustrated and disappointed. But basically, I'm okay. And the parent feels the same way. I'm okay. Okay? I might not win an award today, but I'm okay. And you're okay. So the parent thinks of the child, you're okay. You're all right. I don't need you to be the best at everything. I don't need you to, read faster than, Jimmy down the street. But you're okay. And the child sees the parent and it's like, you're okay. You're safe. You're basically generally safe. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to go your way. But mostly you're safe. And then we're okay. So our relationship is okay. Children are very prone to feeling like things are forever. So I'm going out. No. oh, it seems like forever. Or I'm angry, and then it seems like forever. So for what I would think of as being well-adjusted is to grow that sense of the connection is forever, the togetherness is forever, that disconnection is temporary.
And if I leave, I'm going to come back. And
Yeah. I have this great hero of mine, Janusz Korczak, who's a Polish pediatrician. He ran some orphanages in Poland before World War II and during World War II, and an orphanage in the ghetto, the Warsaw Ghetto. And I could go on and on about his story, but he has a line that I love, which is, he would say to children, "I'm angry with you until lunchtime." And so it's genuine. He's not pretending he wasn't angry, whatever the child did, but it has a time limit. And so the child doesn't feel like
it's forever.
You're angry with me and I'm exiled and I have to desperately get back to be okay with you, or forget it. I might as well just go be, do the worst things I can think of because it doesn't matter. So I'm okay, you're okay, we're okay.
How do we begin to do this playful parenting work when there's a lot of other things going on and we feel overwhelmed?
I believe that playfulness and lightheartedness adds time to your day. And so here's my mathematical equation for this. That let's take getting ready to go out in the morning. So I believe that 10 minutes of play saves you 20 minutes of nagging. So it's not I don't have time for playing. It's like, well, no, that's not true. You don't have time for the nagging. So if you add the 10 minutes, then you get to subtract the 20 minutes of nagging and you come out ahead. So, or homework, okay, before homework time. 10 minutes of pillow fighting before homework time. Okay, homework time will go so much smoother. And instead of an hour to do 2 problems, it's done. Because you've rebuilt the connection, the child has gotten some of that physical energy out. They've got a sense of confidence because they beat you at a pillow fight, and they go in with this can-do attitude and with mom or dad is on my side attitude instead of, they're making me do this stupid thing that I'm bad at. Yes, we have so many other things to do, but I really don't think that this is something that's going to add time to your life that you don't have.
Yeah.
It's actually going to save you time.
Because you're connected.
Yeah. Because the fighting and arguing and disconnection just eats up so much time.
So what small steps can we take to begin on this journey?
Get on the floor, follow children's lead, set a timer for 10 minutes, 10 minutes, do whatever your child wants to do. Call a friend, think about a friend who would be a good listener and just call them and say, when your child's not listening, and say, would you listen to me for 5 minutes? Because I'm about to explode and I don't need any advice. I just need a listening ear. And, you might need to call 2 or 3 people before somebody does a good job at that. And then after they listen to you for 5 minutes, they probably give you advice, but that's all right. And then you can say, would you like me to listen to you for 5 minutes? And they'll say, no. And if you don't say anything, they'll talk. And then after 5 minutes, you say, that was great. I love to have you listening to me so well. I love listening to you. Would you want to do this again tomorrow? And you have a listening partnership. There's, you can go online and look at hand-in-hand parenting and learn all about listening partnerships, but that's the simple version. And it's, it's 5 or 10 minutes. And, begin your day with 5 or 10 minutes of sharing with somebody. Or, if that doesn't work for you, 5 or 10 minutes writing in a journal. Or 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the day, just and not just that, but also to share I felt such a moment of joy today. I felt so in love with my child today. We're kind of embarrassed to say those sweet things.
Beautiful. Is there anything you feel called to share that maybe we didn't cover?
But, just like we said before, like there's enough if we share. It's like there's enough time if we share, and there's some time for us to get back into ourselves, and then there'll be time for play. So I say that because I get afraid that people will add this to their list of things that they're not doing that they're supposed to be doing, and feel bad. And that's so not my goal. That's where you're at.
Yeah.
Your child will be there when you're ready to reconnect.
Thank you. Sometimes we ask guests if there's like a 5-minute practice or something that you could think of that, everybody watching this could do.
Yeah, there's something that I call the SMILE formula. And the SMILE formula you can easily do in 5 minutes. And it's great for situations that have just repeatedly been trouble. Mealtime or brushing teeth or getting shoes on or coming home from the park, that kind of thing. So the SMILE formula goes like this. Starts with a smile. And I call this the "you're not in trouble" smile. Because we're going to bring up a topic that's been a source of tension. So, hey, Mira, I've noticed that we always have a big fight when it's time to come home from the park. Have you noticed that? Yeah. And then let's play a game about it. Because you're not in the middle of it. Okay, you're doing this at a different time. So the SMILE formula happens at a calm moment. And usually it's like, I don't want to talk about the park. A calm moment. Those are terrible times. But no, we're going to bring it in. We're going to bring the creative energy of play into the problem. So, hey, I've noticed, and you say we. It's not, I've noticed that you're a jerk at the park. It's, I've noticed that we always have a big fight at the park. I've noticed that we have a different idea about what bedtime means. I've noticed that we have different ideas about homework. And let's play a game about that. And then you wait to see because a child may well come up with a much better game than you could come up with. And if they don't, or they might walk away and it's like, okay, didn't catch a fish that time. Or they walk away and you follow them and do whatever they're doing. But if they're like the idea but they don't have a game, you could say, let's reverse it. You put me to bed. You tell me it's time to come home from the park. And children love this power reversal kind of game. And you have to, it's brave for the parent because you're going to hear all of the stuff that you say. Or you're going to hear the stuff that your child wishes you would say. But it's fine. So they'll say, oh, you could stay at the park for as long as you want. Or they'll say, come on, I told you. And so, but just get into the spirit of the game. Be the obnoxious kid who's like, I'm not coming home. And do it lightly. You're not making fun of the child.
I love that. So good. Thank you, Larry.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. So appreciate you.
Great.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. You can connect with Into Healing on TikTok and Instagram for more inspirational and behind-the-scenes content, and visit our website, intohealing.com, for transcripts and other goodies. Thank you for joining us.